Howdy folks, this is Shane. Today I'm going to give you 5 inexpensive alternatives to buying a Fender USA made Stratocaster. So this particular video will relate to both beginners and gigging musicians. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to spend X amount of money on a USA made Fender Strat wherever you may live in the world, these are 5 guitars that play well and can be used by gigging musicians as well. So if you already own a Strat and you might own a deluxe one or something like that, and you don't want to take it out to a gig, these are really great backup options, and a lot of these guitars I've actually gigged with and owned and had a chance to play as well. So this is coming from a point of experience, both playing live and just having test stuff in my years of making videos. So let's get into it. The first brand and series of guitars that has to be on this list without question would be the Squier Classic Vibe electric guitars. Now, if you're a long-term subscriber to the channel, you know I've owned a few of these as well. I owned the 50s Telecaster and I also owned the 60s Stratocaster. The 60s Strat is an awesome alternative to a USA Strat. If you're getting into playing guitar and you want something that's quality that will stand the test of time, get a Squier Classic Vibe. You can't go too far wrong. They also make a 50s one as well, which is a bit more obviously like a 50s style guitar, two-tone sunburst, all that kind of stuff. Or you can go for their 60s one, which was the one that I owned, and it had awesome sustain, maybe some of the best sustain out of any of my guitars. Now, I played with these live as well, so if you're a gigging musician looking for a backup guitar, well, you don't want to take out your main guitar or leave it in the car on a hot day or cold day or whatever, the Classic Vibe stuff is great. You don't have to stress too much about it, but they're awesome for beginners, intermediates, or people that actually gig. I would give these a huge thumbs up. If they're a little bit too expensive, I'm going to have some other alternatives on this list. The second guitar brand and range of guitars that makes an awesome alternative to a USA Strat would have to be SX guitars. Now, I had a chance to play these recently, earlier in 2018, and I did a complete 180 over what I thought they were like. I thought they were always going to be cheap junk until I picked one up and I realized, wow, they've got a 60s and 50s style neck, nice big neck, chunky frets, all of the good stuff. I actually own one back here and it's seen some live action already. It's been used on my channel, and in Australia at least, these are way less expensive than the Squier guitars. So if you're looking for something that's, you know, as good as the Squier Classic Vibes, but doesn't cost quite as much, but doesn't have the iconic headstock, that's one of the small limitations. Overall though, it's very, very similar in terms of its design. Good pickups, the switching feels about the same, good sustain. These are actually quite a light guitar as well, so if that's important to you, the SX guitars are definitely really good. Some of the advantages with the SX stuff over, say, the Squier is the fact it comes with a gig bag. The gig bag's crap, but it's better than nothing, which means you have to spend less. And the tremolo system actually works pretty well on these guitars as well. So overall, the SX VTG series stuff is really good. I would definitely give them a look. If you want to go up to the next range, check out the older series. I'll also post links in the description. You can check out their website and see what you think. Up next is a brand I don't hear anyone talking about. So what is it? Yamaha Pacifica. Yeah, Yamaha. Remember those guys? They used to make keyboards and stuff. No, they're still around. They're a big company. But the Yamaha Pacifica range doesn't seem to get a whole lot of love online, and I don't know why. A good friend of mine who plays cover band gigs all the time, and it's a rock and roll band, uses a Yamaha Pacifica. I had no expectations for these guitars until I heard them live, and I went, wow, these are rock and roll machines. One of the great things about these guitars is the pickup combination is generally a little bit different, as well as only having one volume and one tone control. I like its simplicity. Some of them, especially in the entry level range, have a humbucker in the bridge as well. So if you're looking for sort of like a hybrid, getting a couple of single coil pickups mixed with a humbucker, the Yamaha Pacificas are awesome, and they come in at around 179 bucks, and they're great. Like I said, if you own say an Eric Clapton Strat and you're at a gig where it's laying around between sets and someone could just walk out with it, I'd much prefer to lose a Yamaha Pacifica than say a full-blown custom shop Strat. But you know, as a backup guitar and as an entry-level guitar, if you're going to learn, these are great. I know pros who use them, so food for thought there. Up next, we have a brand that comes in at probably the lowest price point out of any of these, lower than all of them. But that doesn't mean it's the worst guitar. This is just their starting price. So at about 79 euros or 135 US dollars, the Harley Benton guitars, what can I tell you? I was completely shocked when I saw these in person, how good they were, especially for the price that you pay. And not only that, the pickups and switching systems in their guitars are actually really, really good. They've got pickups called Roswell pickups on the most part in a lot of their guitars. I actually have one of their Telecasters right now, and the thing sings. It sounds so good. Back even when I started playing, there weren't these kind of guitars around. These would outperform some of the Squier Gold Series guitars that I owned in the past and all of that kind of stuff. Another notable feature of these particular Harley Bentons is the fact that some of them have like a C-shaped neck instead of the modern C, so they're a little bit fatter. And if you've got big hands and you don't like the modern C-shaped neck, then you can get a guitar that plays well. I've taken the Tele out and played it live. Now, unfortunately, I haven't played a left-handed one of these Strats, but I've seen them in person. And I got to tell you, they look great. And they sound fine too. I think this would make a great entry-level guitar as well as a backup guitar if you want to take something to a gig and leave your good one at home. So there you go. And lastly, now before we get to the honorable mentions, I'm going to give you my #1 pick for the best USA Fender Strat alternative. And you might be thinking, well, what else is there? It's a Fender Strat. No kidding. And when I actually put this list together, I was racking my brains. I'll go through some of the honorable mentions in a moment, but the reason this is by far my best pick is because it's the best guitar out of all of them in the range for keeping the really traditional Fender look. I mean, it's got the headstock, it's got the bridge, it's got the classic 3 pickup design. Everything on these guitars is great. This is a Mexican-made Strat. You can substitute this if you so choose with like a Japanese-made one. They make awesome guitars as well. If you're new to the channel, you might not know I own a few Japanese guitars as well. But a made in Mexico Strat is hard to beat, especially for retaining the look. I mean, the Squier retains the look, and many of the others do, but this has the headstock, this has the name, and if you're shopping online, you can get these generally about half the price of a USA made Strat. It doesn't even matter where you live, whether it's the US, Australia, or Canada, or wherever. Odds are these are going to be about 50% less expensive, on the give or take, obviously, than the USA made guitars. And then you can also spend a whole lot more on USA Strats. So overall, I'm going to give the #1 position to the actual Fender Strat made in Mexico. I love these guitars. And this is my only Fender Strat right now. I've owned deluxe Strats, I've owned lots of other things. And lots of other guitars I've owned from Fender in terms of their Strats I've modded to death. This I've done nothing to. My only small criticism again is how the toggle switch feels. It's become looser over the years. It's not a hard fix. The pickups in here are great. I've had a chance to test this against custom shop Strats, and I love the pickups in this. I think this is one of the best guitars you can buy. If you want to invest in guitar and you want to spend time with it and learn it, buy something that plays good. Any of these guitars on this list are great for beginners. This is also maybe a little bit more of a higher end guitar on this list compared to some of the others I've mentioned. But you know, if you're a gigging musician or you plan to play live, you can't go too far wrong with a Mexican made Stratocaster. In terms of honorable mentions, some of these are a little bit more expensive than others, but still are way less expensive than a USA made Fender Strat. So the first one on the list might surprise you, and if you haven't seen these, I'll leave some links in the description below, you can check them out. So Schecter actually make a really nice Strat style guitar. Now the only appreciable difference that you can see visually is the shape of the headstock, and that's required obviously by legal law. So yeah, that's just one of those things that all companies have to do that other than Fender obviously, and some of the Japanese guitars. So Schecter, definitely get the thumbs up. I like what they're doing now with some of these more traditional guitars, and that's coming from a blues guy. So yeah, check them out if you get a chance. They come in at around $4.99, and that's US dollars, which is the same, give or take, as the made in Mexico Strat as well. So it just depends on which you like. If you're a traditionalist, you probably end up going for the Fender because they've been doing it for so long. Now this list of honorable mentions wouldn't be complete without adding G&L to the list as well. They make some fantastic Strat style and Tele style guitars as well as other types as well, basses and so forth. But in terms of their Strats, they make a budget line called the Tribute Legacy Series. They come in at about $4.49 US as opposed to $4.99 with the Mexican made Strat. So they're a little bit less expensive if you buy online. I'll post some links in the description, you can check them out. I've owned a G&L before. It was one of their top of the line like ASAT Teles, and you know, overall they're really well built instruments. Now just to let you know too, I think their plant is currently in Indonesia. Before that it was in Korea, and you can still buy the USA made ones obviously as well, but just to let you know where they're made, a little bit of background. They're still solid instruments. In Australia, G&L don't hold their value, and I know that's the case in other parts of the world as well. So if you can find these on the used market, definitely give them a look. Without question, the last honorable mention I have to put in this list is pretty much anything made in Japan. So whether it's Fender, Tokai, or Fernandez, or anything like that, if you can find any of these guitars for a good price, pick them up. The quality is just fantastic. The tone is great. You won't have to do anything to them in terms of their switches or pickups on the most part. They just sound and work well. I currently own a couple of Japanese guitars and they're some of my favorites yet. So that's food for thought there as well. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. My name's Shane. So that's been my personal pick for the 5 best inexpensive Fender Stratocaster style guitars that you can buy on a budget. Great for beginners, also great as a backup guitar for working musicians. If I missed something or you think of a brand that would definitely make the list, please let me know in the comments and I'll pin the most relevant posts. It's always good to hear your feedback in the comments. It always helps others decide on stuff as well. If you want to find out about anything in this list, I'll post all the stuff in the description. You can click through and check it out in your area. Thanks again for watching. My name's Shane. I'll catch you soon. See ya.